All right, folks, you are listening to the Yishai Fleischer Show, broadcasting live on Purim to the world. So good Purim to you. Welcome to Judea, and welcome to Malka Fleischer. Shalom.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei pri hagafen.
Amen. All right. Drinking a little wine on the show.
We're going to do this show the right way.
Yeah. Drinking
the Purim way.
Drinking and driving.
This is good.
Yeah. What are you drinking there exactly? Some Judean wine?
Some Riesling.
Wow.
Barkon, I think.
Okay, great. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, it is
great.
Purim. That is the holiday of the Megillat Esther. It's the holiday of giving presents to fellow Jews, and also, I guess, friends of Israel are part of it as well, and also charity, and of course, drinking and masks. And it's really to see that God is behind everything. That's the point of this thing. It's a little bit, as they say in the psychological circles, to decenter a little bit, to kind of break out of the regular way, and to see that God is behind everything. And the Megillat Esther, one of the most incredible documents that Judaism has to offer, with so many tie-ins to Joseph and Rachel and Benjamin and Amalek and all the different, and there's just these tiny, it's sewn through so precisely. And yet God's name is hidden. How could that be? And it's basically the whole Megillah is God's name. It's just that it lets you see that God is everywhere.
I had a thought. I had a deep thought today
Go ahead.
during the morning Megillah reading. I want to give a big thanks to Chabad of Efrat for the beautiful Megillah reading. The story starts like this. There's Vashti. And there's a seuda, there's a big wine party, and she doesn't come out. And then the girls get kidnapped from all over the kingdom and brought over to the king's palace. And Esther is schlepped over there, and she's there, and she's there, and she's there, and she's in this kind of bath and that kind of bath. And Mordecai is pacing up and down. What's going to be with my girl Esther? And then finally, she has to go in and be with the king. And then the king is like, yeah, I like that one. And then they get married, and Esther's there. And then Haman comes in. Mm-hmm. Only after all that stuff do you ever hear the name Haman. And when you talk about Hashem being absent from the Megillah, you could start to read this story and just go, what a mess. What a disaster. For what is this? This is just the story of a girl being kidnapped and imprisoned in a harem. In a harem of like an icky man, right? Forever, for the rest of her life, like a nice girl from a nice family who's already been through so much.
She's already an orphan.
Right. She's already been through so much. And it made me realize that Hashem, he set up the salvation in motion before the problem even arose.
Right.
There was no Haman. It wasn't like there was Haman and then Esther comes in.
That salvation
Esther
looked like
comes
a
in
problem.
and then Haman.
Right. But you're saying that the salvation itself looked like a problem.
The salvation looked like the problem, but Hashem is like a lie. Okay, ani alze. He's like, I have already set the thing up in rotation before you could possibly understand what I'm doing.
Right.
And I got like a tremendous nechama from that. Like I got a real life consolation from that. That sometimes things seem like they don't make any sense and they're just bad and the bad thing is happening, but it's all tied into a future that you can't possibly imagine yet.
Right.
And so hang in there.
Right.
Because you don't know if you came to the to the palace for just such a moment.
Mm-hmm. That's right. I remember when
L'chaim.
Cheers. I remember when that helicopter crash happened a month before Twin Towers.
Right.
It was this family, a Jewish Orthodox family
Right.
that was in Colorado on a helicopter trip and seeing wealthy family. They were having a nice time. The chopper crashed.
Right.
They all died. It was
horrible.
horrific.
Horrible.
And who would have known that exactly 30 days later, tens of people, maybe hundreds of people under Shloshim.
Right. Lives were saved because of them.
Right. And I mean, you can't.
Right. You wouldn't. Yeah.
You don't make that into like, okay, it worked out all for the good.
It's still a terrible loss.
Right. But somehow.
And yet it was part of the plan.
Right. Absolutely. Malka Fleischer, it is Purim today.
We're sitting on our couches. I am wearing my Viking costume.
Well, you're not only a Viking. You're a Zionist Viking.
See. We kind of came up with this costume, and then I looked it up. It turns out that there is a stream of thought that says that Vikings were actually part of the lost tribes of Israel. It's called Nordic Israelism.
Nordic Israelism.
So I'm a Nordic Israelite.
Malka, you're certainly on the Nordic track, I would like to say, okay? That's for sure. And we don't, you know, I don't have a lot to do with Nordicness, you know?
You don't even like you know, that smoked salmon.
I don't, but I do like IKEA.
Yeah.
And I did just tour around some Danish journalists who
That's
definitely the Danes are they're definitely the Vikings.
Yeah.
And they were proud of and I told them that I watched the show because of my friend Jake. I watched a show called The Last Kingdom. Not recommending it, but I did watch it. Okay, it's a pretty violent and brutal show, but it's kind of real to life. And it's about the Danes and the Brits kind of fighting it off.
What language is it in?
It's in English. But you and I did watch that show from Norway. Remember the Norway show
what was
that we
that
watched?
Called?
Occupied.
Yeah, that was good for the first season.
Yeah, first
anyway,
season.
let's not talk about all
All
this
I'm
stuff.
saying is we have a little bit of Nordic Nordic moment here.
Theme.
Right.
I wish I had a bagel with lox right now.
I am also wearing a Nordic theme. I'm more. You're like the kind, good Nordic person.
Yeah, I'm like Nordic mom.
Right, you're Nordic
just getting
mom.
her Nordic kids to Nordic soccer. You know.
Yeah, just lighting the Nordic fire. you know. But believing in the one God of Israel. But I am more of the. I'm not dressed yet, but I'm more of the conquering.
Maybe we'll take our picture
pillage type
and
thing.
put that up somewhere.
Yeah, I put up a picture. I put up a really.
Oh yeah,
scary
you put up a picture with your brother.
Yeah, a picture of my brother.
Both
my
of you
brother.
bringing knives to shul. That was
Yeah,
awesome.
yeah, full on blade knives. Yeah, that's right. So there you go.
Israel moment.
That's right, Malka. Cheers to you, L'chaim. And it is actually on Purim. And you and I, we also have a custom of really celebrating Purim as a 2-day holiday.
Yes.
So today we are in Gush Etzion. Tomorrow we'll go.
Right, we're in Purim, and tomorrow, with God's help, we'll enjoy Shushan Purim because the killing happened over 2 days, and that's what we're celebrating.
Well, really, the 14th of Adar is the day after the defense and victorious defense on the 13th of Adar in the villages, in the outlying places, and then on the 14th
suburbs, in the burbs.
Then on the 14th, that's when they fought in Shushan. And the 15th is when they celebrated. Mm-hmm. So really, it's in many ways, the simple read of it, it's a 3-day holiday.
Right.
There's Tanis Esther, which is where the fight was. That's what I realized. That's where the battle was. The big battle. Right. The big battle is in Tanis Esther. So we pray for the battle. Okay. And reminds us also what we read. Part of what our readings now is how Moses held up his hands, and Hur. And Aaron held up his hands while Joshua was fighting with the Amalekites. So that's like this. Like there's something just like Esther's, fast that she's like praying for the Jews. That's what we do on Tanis Esther. And then we have 2 days. We have Purim, Purim of Prazim, and then Purim of Shushan.
You know what I like to think about sometimes when you say stuff like that?
Mm-hmm.
You know, Hashem, he is timeless. He has no beginning and he has no end. We are kind of on like a linear time spectrum.
Mm-hmm.
But we can't really perceive that Hashem is like all. He's everything. He's past and future and present all at once. Right. And sometimes I like to think that on these holidays, Hashem is like still exactly there at that moment of the miracle that we're talking about.
Absolutely.
And so I like to think to myself that it's not just that we remember a long time ago that there was a miracle, and that there was a girl, and that was her, or there was her uncle / possibly husband, but that Hashem is actually doing the thing now at this exact moment that he did a long time ago for us.
Yeah. And there'll be physicists who tell you that timeline exists right now. It's happening at the same time. I'm not going to get into that, but I totally agree with you.
It's beyond the scope. That's a few glasses of wine away from where we are right now.
That's the magic of these texts, these Torah holy texts. They exist like God in perfection, and they are alive at this moment, just like you're saying.
Right.
And when you read it, you're like, whoa. And that's why there's such a whenever in Judaism you see such an absurd fanaticism about anything, know that we're dealing with very spiritual things. For example, shechita, the slaughtering. There's this like obsession with the sharpness of the knife, and it's like it's a little bit like mad. And I saw in the Kabbalistic books that, it's mad because we're talking about releasing of souls,
Right.
and all kinds of souls need tikkunim, need to be fixed. Same thing here. You have to hear every word of the Megillah, and you got to be, you got to be in the synagogue and hear it and then see it and all that. Why is it so uptight on this relax holiday, right?
Mm-hmm.
No. We're dealing with just what you said. This is happening right now.
Right now.
You got.
Right.
You can't miss a word.
You gotta
here.
you gotta have a little bit of an adrenaline rush during the even a tiny adrenaline rush during the Megillah. And so I really want to give a big shout out to the people who read Megillah in communities.
Yeah.
I don't think that you always realize it's not just that you yotzeh al yedei chovah. It's not just that you get it done. The people who know how to bring the story into your heart on that very moment that it needs to get there, those people are doing something to you that is huge.
Right.
And they're doing something for you that's huge. And it's the word mitzvah, it does not encompass it.
Well,
I think that it's
I
I've been to some not so moving Megillah readings, and I feel crushed when I walk out of there.
Right.
And I've been to some Megillah readings that are really good, and you're just I think I just did Purim. I was there. You know what I'm saying? And it's a very big deal.
I want to give a piece of advice to people. Now, there are people all over the world. Some of them are in Jewish communities are going to hear the Megillah, and maybe they're not going to hear such a great reading because somebody goes fast. Or maybe you're in outlying places and you're not even in a Jewish community. You're not going to hear it. Here's what I recommend. Go to YouTube.
Right.
Okay? Open up. Even if let's say you went to synagogue and they did it for you, but it wasn't great. It was okay. Mm-hmm. Go to YouTube. There are fabulous readings on YouTube. In fact, I'd love us to
we should
put
put one on. Yeah.
And it's just that, and on YouTube, the people that do it, they're doing it. They're doing
right,
it
and
full.
they have time. Yeah.
Right, and so there's great ones, and if you open up your book or if you have a klaf, you could follow along, and it's not for the halacha.
It doesn't get you out of your obligation, I think, but it will put you in the spirit.
Right, absolutely. The other thing I want to do is I want to say hi to people all over the world who are part of the story, and here's how you know that you love the Jewish people. Let's say you're a Gentile. And you love the Jewish people, you love Purim.
Huh.
Gentiles who love Purim are Gentiles who want to see the Jewish people strong, who want to see the Jewish people reveal God even when he's hidden. They want it to be that. Gentiles who look at us askance, and I've seen it, on Purim, they are secretly haters.
Well, they might have been those guys we were dealing with in Shushan.
When Aryeh Abramowitz used to live in the Old City, we once went to the Old City for Purim. And I was dressed as a Taliban fighter.
You were awesome. That was the best costume
I had the full regalia plus a true to God M16.
Because you were on the rapid response team in Beit El.
Right.
And so they issue guns after careful security checks and everything. They issue you guns.
That's right. But I had the clip in.
And you took it with
thing.
you. Yeah, that was one of the best costumes ever.
It was great. And there's still pictures
you look
of
very
that.
Taliban-y.
That's right. And I have that in me a little bit. So, but the point is,
you Pashtun. You got a little Pashtun in you. You can feel it.
Here's the point that I'm trying to make, which is I saw haters. Hold on, somebody's knocking at the door. That means it's we're pausing for a second to receive and give mishloach manot. Hold on. Okay, that was one of Elazar's friends.
Yes, we did
a
an
nice
exchange.
10-year-old boy did the exchange of the
exchange.
mishloach manot. Okay, great. Now, so I was saying that we went to the Old City that time, and so I saw a lot of Gentiles. So there was all kinds of Gentiles that live in the Old City, and I saw some that looked at me with joy, and I'm like, "You love it when Jews are strong, don't you?" And they're like, I could see it. And
they're happy,
They're happy. And then I saw plenty of people who were like, and
you're like, okay, Shushanite.
Because what happens on Purim is that things are revealed, right? And so I saw the heart. I saw the heart.
You saw the Amalek in there.
Absolutely. But the reason I'm saying all this is because I want to give a shout out to all the way to Alaska.
Alaska?
Brenda writes, Yishai, thank you for your podcast. I've been listening for over a year from Alaska. I really appreciate how welcoming you are to those that love the Bible but are not Jewish. Thank you for that. My heart belongs to Israel for sure. I love the pic of your website with you carrying a sidearm. I own a business in Alaska teaching firearm instruction, especially for women, in the Alaska Concealed Carry course.
I want to go to the Alaska Concealed Carry course in Alaska.
That's right.
Yishai.
Please come to Alaska.
Bucket list.
I would be delighted to have you at our range, though I am a Gentile. I started celebrating the high holy days in my little rural town of Nikiski. Nikiski, which is 2 years ago. I am a nurse at our 30-bed hospital and work with 2 Jewish doctors who have led a bunch of
Two Jewish doctors in Alaska. There's more than one.
Every one of them is named Fleischman. Okay, and they have led a bunch of Gentile Alaskans in the celebration of Sukkot and Pesach.
Wow.
This year, I will host 2 Pesach Seders, and I think the crowd of hospital coworkers will be so large I will need to rent a facility.
Get out of here.
As my home can only hold like 30 people. I've been so honored to facilitate these 2 doctors to return back to their Jewish roots, as things can be so busy in med school.
Unbelievable.
I traveled to Israel 3 years ago and have wanted to go back since. I traveled with an Arab tour guide who told me there was, quote unquote, nothing to see in Hebron.
Nothing to see here.
Nothing.
Oh, look, what's that over there? Is that McDonald's? Okay. Look at that.
I have a little piece of Palestinian porcelain to sell you. Okay. My friend and I had 2 free days to travel independently, and we did not go to Hebron at the advice of our tour guide. I'm sorry for that decision. Parentheses from Yishai. Don't worry about it.
Yeah,
We're gonna fix it up. However, my friend and I will be returning to the Holy Land, God willing, soon. We plan to be in Hebron, etc.
Yes,
She gives
you
me a
come
date.
to Hebron.
Is there a possible way for you to give us a tour? Yeah, you bet. And then we'll you give me a gun tip, and I'll give you a tour. I'm sure you are on high demand. That's true. My friend finances our travels. Okay, blah blah blah. And she wants to be introduced to the history of Judaism. You got it. I'm hoping that this trip to Israel will teach her to love the Jewish people in the Holy Land.
Wow. That is a beautiful email.
In any case, for Brenda in Alaska. And so,
wow, Isha, can we please go visit her in Alaska?
Of course. Nick Sicky.
Oh man, do I want to go there?
Nick.
Now I'm putting that on the bucket list.
There you go. Of course, Alaska, and we'll celebrate and we'll see the bears and the whole thing. And
seals.
The seals, everything.
We can't eat the blubber. That blubber.
No, you can't eat the blubber.
It's not kosher.
Yeah, but we can.
But if there's salmons,
we can make
eat
cholent, and we could. Yeah. Anyway, all right. Listen, I just wanted to say that there are people all over the world who are celebrating, and I want you people out there, Jews. This is a big holiday, and everybody knows that. I want Gentiles to celebrate Purim today. This is a day.
How should they do that?
Okay, I want you to first thing there is type in Purim music into YouTube.
Nice, classic. You can get little songs in there.
Right. Second thing, put on the background in YouTube the Megillat Esther.
Not at the same time.
No, not at the same time. Won't work, or it'll just sound really bad. I want you to eat a hamantash, and I want you to eat a triangle cookie.
Anything triangularly shaped is okay.
That's right. Eat a triangle. If you have a cookie, cut it into a triangle. If you can't do it, just cut it into a triangle.
You got sandwiches?
Yeah, make
triangle.
That's right, triangle sandwiches. This is in memory of Haman's ears or Haman's hat.
We should triangle sandwich Mishloach Manot next year.
That's right. And most importantly,
pizza,
is I want you to,
triangle.
There you go. I want you to raise your glass more than anything. Raise your glass, and I hope you have a glass of wine from the land of Israel. I want you to raise your glass to the victory over Amalek, and also to understand that this is part of a larger story. If you want the larger story, you have to understand the book of Ezra. This is exactly during the time that the Jewish people had started building the temple, rebuilding the second temple. It was blocked by haters, and it was Mordechai and Esther and Mordechai who understood where their role in history was, that they had to bring Jewish kingship back, kingship, dress as kings, defeat Amalek, and then restart the building of the second Beit HaMikdash, as the prophecy said, the second temple. And so this is in many ways there's another hidden character in this whole thing, which is Yerushalayim. Yerushalayim is Yerushalayim. That's the hidden character.
It's true.
That's right, and that's the only other city mentioned by name in the Megillah. The only other city mentioned.
You're right.
Yerushalayim, and it's about rebuilding of Yerushalayim.
Oh, Yerushalayim.
It's about that. That's what was being stopped. That's what Mordechai and the Christian movie that was made, right? The Esther movie.
Esther. Turner Classic Films.
Right. That
totally
movie,
worth seeing.
That movie understands. They understood that this is part of the Ezra. In the
right.
trilogy.
Ezra is like a big rabbi in
right,
that,
and Nehemiah.
Yeah, he's all ornery.
Right, and they're all about
zealous for Jerusalem.
That's exactly what and he's like, I'm going to Jerusalem at the end
Esther,
of the movie.
Turner Classic Films. Type it into YouTube. It's there.
It's fabulous.
Esther, watch Esther. Nice movie.
Excellent. Okay, so there you go. These are tips for now. If anybody is listening to the show after Purim, I'm telling you now that Purim is yesterday, which was Wednesday in Israel, today, Thursday, Friday. And since it touches into Shabbat, you can have even more. So my point is that
much wonderful.
That's
Purim.
right. So there is Purim and do
drink
yourself
responsibly,
a favor.
guys.
Sure, don't drink and drive. but we have a lot of jokes
But have
about
fun.
that.
Drink,
Yeah,
though.
exactly.
Do drink, though.
Yeah, exactly. Say l'chaim and get a little decentered and see God everywhere.
Although some people just take a nap.
That's right. Take a nap.
I could use a nap.
Yeah. Seriously.
I mean, if that was like a way to fulfill mitzvahs, it's really great.
All right, folks. I also want to thank the folks that make this show possible. Folks from Prohibition Pickle. I hope that Chaim will be coming around today. He said he would.
Really?
Yeah, and that would be great. So Chaim from Prohibition Pickle, check out his great stuff on Facebook and on Instagram, and send some of your favorite folks a gift here in Israel of deliciousness, deliciousitude. I'm salivating.
Ooh,
Swallow. I also want to, of course.
Wait, I'm going to eat an Oznei Haman. Hang on.
Go ahead, Malcolm.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, borei minim ezonot.
Amen. Okay.
It's really good.
Enjoy that. That is good looking Mosneaman with
Leah
chocolate.
made them.
They're good. You made some also with pie crust. Oh my God, I love them. Anyway, so that was really good. Chevron, the Chevron Jewish community, which celebrates both days. Okay, both
fun.
days, and
With God's help, we'll go to Yerushalayim tomorrow.
that's right.
Hang out with your mom.
That's right. The Hebron Jewish community needs your support. HebronFund.org. We keep Hebron strong. Keeping Hebron strong means keeping the forefathers and mothers strong, which means keeping the Jewish roots strong. It's like hair. You got to nurture the roots. You know what I'm saying? That's right. You got to condition. That's exactly
Scalp
what you're
massage.
doing. Here comes Leah with
here's our kids. They brought Mishloach Manot.
Mishloach Manot from their long.
Wow.
You kids want to get on the air just for a second here? Anybody want to say
I don't want
something?
to say anything. Leah, your Oznei Haman are really good.
Thank you.
Okay, very good.
She doesn't know. They don't know what to say.
Okay,
Yeah, our kids are
God bless them.
full of sugar. Nice.
Who else, Mommy, do we want to thank? TheJewishPress.com for putting out great content.
JNS.org.
JNS.org.
Okay, that was Israel. That was his
Those are
wise
6-year-old.
addition to the show.
Thank you very much.
Excellent job.
Okay, and I also want to thank Brenda. Also, don't make too much noise. 1 second, we're almost done here. Brenda also sent a donation in through
Wow, thank you, Brenda.
buymeacoffee.com/Yishai.
10 pounds of seal blubber. We really, really appreciate it.
What?
That is like a trading commodity in Alaska.
Yeah. Well, what do you want to do with seal blubber?
It keeps you alive because it's very high in calories.
Okay, Maki, that's good. Thank you very much. We're not Inuits. We are First Nations, though.
Yeah.
You better believe it.
No,
we're
but
First
in seriousness,
Nations.
Brenda, thank you so much. I'm just making
That's right,
silly
that's
jokes
right.
on Purim.
That's right. So,
But thank you so much for your donation and for listening. And there's so many people who are listening out there, and we meet you every once in a while. First of all, there are people who are our friends who listen. That's just amazing. But every once in a while, we meet people who are like, yeah, I listened to your show. I heard this, I heard that. And it's just so awesome. It's awesome to be connected to you. And it's awesome to be connected, all of us, to each other. And I really want to send my blessings and our family's blessings to your family and to you, wherever you are and whatever your situation is. And just know that Hashem is behind the scenes no matter what, and setting up the scene for a great, epic redemption. And we just got to hang in there, and we can do this together. And we just love you so much, and we bless you with the happiest holiday, this holiday, and every just single day of your life, really.
all right, folks, the show goes on. Right now, we have a very special treat. One of the just one of the most important intellectuals in Israel today is Dr. Moshe Koppel. He's on right now. We're talking Purim. We're talking about Jewish sociology. We're talking about Ukraine and all the stuff there. So stay tuned for that. We'll be right back. Also, thank you to Moshe Herman, Ben Bresky, Tabitha, Yocheved, and Lou for getting the show out to the world. God bless you guys. More great stuff is on the way, and we'll be right back. I haven't even drunken yet. I'm already sloshing my words. Makel Chaim.
Chaim, Purim Sameach.
Good Purim, and we'll be right back. Stay tuned to the show.
Don't worry, the Yishai Fleischer Show will be right back, so stay tuned.
All right, folks, you are listening to the Yishai Fleischer Show, and it is the Fast of Esther. It's today, the day before Purim, and I'm recording here in beautiful Judea. And this is a day of reflection. You know, it's actually not a halachic imperative to fast on this day. It is a minhag. The Jewish people have accepted upon themselves that just as Esther prayed and prepared to face the king, so too we have to pray and prepare. There's something also akin to Yom Kippur in all that, which is we're about to kind of enter Purim, which is this high holiday where we let go of everything, and yet still there's something very holy about it. So in order to get into the day of drinking and revelry, at the same time a little bit of seriousness the day before. I'm sitting here in the office of Dr. Moshe Koppel, whose office looks down the street towards the Temple Mount. And he is the founding chairman of the Kohelet Policy Forum, which Haaretz, the far-left Israeli newspaper, calls the most successful initiative of the right, the nationalists, in the past decade, and which is widely regarded as Israel's most influential pro-Zionist, pro-free market think tank. This is the kind of organization that Knesset members turn to get educated, that policy comes out of and then implemented later on by other people. Moshe Koppel is a professor emeritus of computer science at Bar-Ilan University and the author of over 100 articles in leading academic journals on math, computer science, linguistics, law, economics, political science, and other disciplines. He is the founding director of Dicta, a research institute devoted to developing tools on computational analysis of Jewish texts. So that's fun, right? So it's the fusion of both math, computers, and Jewish texts, and you get a little bit of that when you go to something like Sefaria. Moshe Koppel is the author of 3 books on Jewish thought, most recently, Judaism Straight Up, Why Real Religion Endures, published by Koren, and that's what we're going to be talking about today. Moshe Koppel, thanks so much for joining me today, or me joining you here in your office.
Well, it's absolutely a delight to have you here, Yishai. Thanks for making the long trek out here.
Yes, it's fabulous to be with you here, and your office really does look straight down onto the Temple Mount from Judea.
I actually can sit in my office and see the Temple Mount, yes.
Does that inspire you sometimes? When you see?
Indeed it does. Indeed it does. On a clear day, you can see the glint of the dome.
That's right. Even actually, I've saw recently from this area. Indeed, even in these wintry days, I saw the glint of the dome of the Golden Dome of the Rock. And the reason I ask you about that is because your organization, Kohelet, is it's trying to bring Zionism back to Zion. We live in a time where one could, and my colleagues do, argue that we're living in a post-Zionist time where the state of Israel is oftentimes acting as a post or even anti-Zionist. Like some of my work at Hebron is that I have to somehow bypass, hide away from, defeat, beat, and somehow cajole the Jewish state to act Jewishly.
Yeah, unfortunately, that is sometimes the case. I'm optimistic on the whole, but the history of it is pretty straightforward. Zionism initially was an attempt to renew the Jewish nationalist spirit, but because after 2,000 years of diaspora, Jewish religion had kind of focused on tradition, on religion, on religious belief, on customs, and kind of de-emphasized the nationalist side because we were in fact in the diaspora. So those who wish to revive, that nationalist spirit kind of jettisoned religion as part of it. So, what you had was nationalism without religion. And that kind of held on for a while. It works for a generation or two, but then at some point, if you've jettisoned the Jewish religion, your Jewish nationalism kind of begins to ebb as well. And we're seeing the consequences of that. What you're seeing is a lot of secular Zionists, or the children and grandchildren of secular Zionists who are, some of them are returning to religion, but many of them who are staying secular are also losing that nationalist spirit.
Mm-hmm. But there are countries that are nationalist, let's say Ireland, and it's not necessarily, or Denmark, and it's not necessarily connected to religion of any kind. Why do the Jews need? Well,
that's a very different kind of nationalism. I mean, the whole point is that Judaism is different, right? It's unique in the sense that the Jews are both a nation and a religion. The two are kind of wedded together. And that is very unique. So in Judaism, at least, when religion begins to decline, nationalism eventually will follow, and that's what we've been seeing. So I mean, it's interesting to compare us to to countries like Scandinavian countries or to Ireland or something, but in the end, they're not quite analogous.
Right. However, while you say they're not quite analogous, I find, and I'm constantly having to explain, that one of the pillars of the state of Israel is nation-stateness, nationalism. Okay? I find that American audiences, and we're going to get into that through your book as well, I find that American Jews don't understand that nationalism is a value. That ancient peoples living on their ancient land. It's okay. That's a good thing. And that speaking their language, and that it's to the exclusion, to a large extent, not to total extent, of others. You could call it, I say nationalism, they're like, you mean an ethno-state. I say no, nationalism can be broader than an ethno-state. You can have people who are with you in your national movement. But my point is that Denmark or Ireland or Japan or Armenia or a host of other countries, it's sometimes helpful to Americans to be like, hey, there is another way. Nationalism is a good thing. And I find that Israeli Jews also don't know how to articulate nationalism. Your organization, Kohelet, went out and had to do something that you would think would never need to be done, which is to help define the Jewish state as such as the Jewish state. That's the famous Jewish Israel nation-state law. You were one of the proponents and major forces behind that. Why did Israel need to be told that it's a Jewish state? Wasn't that obvious? Isn't that part of the DNA of the thing?
Yeah, you would think it's obvious, but unfortunately, it has become less and less obvious over the years. You need to understand something. Jews have been a persecuted minority for 2,000 years, and when Jews came to liberal countries like the United States, for example, so part of this Jewish diaspora ethos was to kind of show that they were inoffensive. We're just like everybody. We're just like everybody else. We're not threatening. That was kind of a defense mechanism that people accustomed to persecution would use, and they were forever tripping over themselves to show that they were inoffensive. They didn't want to stick out. They weren't, if they're going to stick out, they're going to stick out like by creating Hollywood or something like that, something extremely benign. But the idea that Jews actually have their own national aspirations was something that they tried to avoid because they thought it would be threatening. And this kind of diaspora mentality pops up again and again and again. So here we are in Israel, which was founded on the basis of Jewish nationalism, and establishing a Jewish state with a Jewish flag in which the national language is Hebrew and the symbols are Jewish and so forth. And eventually, that began to be threatened both from without, other countries going, well, the idea of a Jewish nation state is somehow a racist idea, right? The same people who
the racist is the old word. Today, the word is supremacist.
Supremacist.
That's
yeah,
what
supremacist, even worse.
All the time.
Right. So these people who regard this as supremacist, right, or racist, or whatever bad word is current, right? They're in favor of 100 other nation states in the world, and in particular, they're in favor of creating a Palestinian nation state right here where we're sitting, right? Because that's perfectly okay. But the Jews are not entitled to a nation state. Now, unfortunately, because of this kind of opposition, both outside of Israel and inside of Israel, it became necessary to actually legislate this. Now, it's important to say what's in this law, because people, tried, in attempting to represent this law as being something reprehensible, supremacist, racist, etc., they kind of imply that the law creates two different kinds of citizens, Jewish citizens and non-Jewish citizens. All that is nonsense. Okay, the law does not relate in any way to the rights of individuals in Israel, which are, in fact, completely equal between Jews, non-Jews, and any other group you might have in mind. Everybody has the same civil and political rights in Israel. The law is about what's the flag, what's the national language, what are the national symbols, what is the national calendar, that Shabbat is the day of rest in Israel. Okay? These are the kinds of things that are in the law. They are completely unobjectionable. There's very little in there that's very specifically religious in character. There's not a word about the official rabbinate of Israel or anything like that. It's all about the kind of symbols, calendar, language that make Jews in Israel sufficiently comfortable, right, in their own skins, right? They just feel like, hey, this is home. The whole thing is just trying to make them feel home. Nothing more.
And yet, a lot of people, I think, still have a hard time verbalizing that, and that I think partially one of the sins was the lack of teaching of that simple verbalization. Yes, Israel's the Jewish nation state. And using all kinds of other things. And what came in the 90s was this new terminology of Jewish and democratic, which is mathematically correct, right? We are Jewish and democratic. But it's actually But it's in reality, it's not correct, because what they mean when they say Jewish and democratic is they mean not Jewish nation state. They mean a way to undermine the Jewishness of the Jewish state.
Right. Well, technically, Jewish and democratic are actually not parallel, because Jewish is like a substantive thing. In other words, that this is what the state is going to be like, whereas democratic is the procedures by which things are decided. Right. Now, these two things are actually, not on parallel tracks. Right. You need to have rules for deciding things, and the idea is in a democratic state, it is the people who decide things through their representatives in the Knesset, right? Now, Israel actually suffers a democracy deficit because in fact it's actually not the Knesset that decides things. In fact, over here it's a small group of elites who sit in the Supreme Court who actually decide everything. So if we want to make Israel more democratic, and we should, then we should actually be giving more power to the Knesset and taking away from the courts. Now, in terms of it being Jewish, well, that can't conflict with democratic as long as that's what the people want, right? If the people and their representatives have voted into law certain things that make Israel a Jewish nation state, all of which, as I said, are inoffensive and do not in any way impinge on anybody's civil or political rights, well, then there's no conflict between democratic and Jewish. So, as you say, people are actually using this phrase as a rhetorical device to bludgeon those who actually want to have some Jewish substance in the country. And in fact, they're redefining democratic as being something not procedural but substantive. They're saying, yeah, democratic in the substantive sense, this is a term made up by Justice Aaron Barak, in the substantive sense means that that religion can't be, can't bother people too much, that Jewish nationalism can't come and get in the way too much.
Mm-hmm. So you've written this book, which is, it's. I think its point is to make Judaism make sense in terms of a system of why it perpetuates and how it perpetuates and why it's necessary and needed today. I think that's the point of the book. But what I found that the book had more humor and interest for me, especially, is the sociological. You made up characters. These characters, they seem like they're not even made up characters. They're just maybe renamed characters or a combination of a few characters. I've many. I can take a lot of Arabs that I've met and make them speak in one way, and that's what I feel like you've done. And these characters are, how should I say, they're very rich. You really created these characters that I recognize as people. I want to read a little bit from actual passages that describe it to people. So the first character is Heidi. And here's what you write about Heidi. Heidi and her friends share similar academic and professional backgrounds, especially political views. But these similarities are mostly defined by what they are not. Heidi's crowd is not held together by kinship or ethnicity, or by shared history, or by a rich system of social norms. It is held together to a large extent by the disdain with which it regards the norms that it rejects, the other guys. Shimon, this is the second character, this is a Ger Chassid, and he has indeed a very rich, here it is, he says, you say, Shimon, on the other hand, does share a rich system of social norms with his compatriots. As a result, he can walk into a Ger Shtibel, this means a Hasidic synagogue, anywhere in the world, and find people who remember his family, who share friends and acquaintances with him, who speak his dialect, who know what he knows, who understand what he needs, who exchange just the right kinds of stories and jokes, and who do business with him on the basis of a handshake and a nod. Heidi can walk into a progressive conclave and find people who share with her a passion for fair trade coffee and a fear of Republicans. Ouch! There's a sting there, right?
Oh yeah. In case it wasn't clear who my favored character is in this story. Yes, Shimon is my alter ego. He represents somebody who not only respects tradition but kind of lives in a traditional world, so that a tradition for him is not something that he kind of made some ideological decision to follow. It's just his life, right? He just lives a traditional life, and I really like him. He he basically was one of my he's a real character, by the way, as you noticed. He was my grandfather's best friend, and he and my grandfather like lived in this little world of people just like them, Eastern European refugees from very traditional homes who came to America and built new lives after the Holocaust. And I just love these guys. You know, there's just something about them that's really authentic. They could afford to be authentic. They didn't need to run around proving to anybody that they were authentic because they were just so authentic, right? So there was just something very, very natural about the way these guys practiced, you know, their own traditions. And Heidi is this ideologue, you know, like she's forever deciding what needs to be done and running out and doing it and saving the world and in all these bizarre liberal ways that, you know, that people sometimes do. And as a result, she lives in a very, very thin community, which is the point that I was bringing out in that pretty nasty passage you read.
Yeah, and then you also talk about her daughter. You say shortly after this is Amber. That's right. She goes shortly after she and Serge married, and a year before they split up. Heidi gave birth to their daughter Amber. Amber is now a student at Oberlin. That's a thin hint there. Okay, majoring in colonial and environmental studies. She rarely acknowledges her Jewish roots, other than to occasionally begin remarks hostile to Judaism or Israel with the words, "as a Jew."
Okay.
I one of my jokes is that there is another Judaism out there. It's called My Judaism. It's this other form. It's this other thing. But you always know what it is when they say My Judaism says X. Not Judaism says X, but my.
Yeah. So as a Jew, my as a Jew is a version of your My Judaism.
Right. That's right. That's right. You really contrast these characters, and one of the things I think that you're trying to bring out is that a traditional life geared and tested by modernity, right? Which is another passage later on, which you're basically like, it's not like these things are all faith. It's not. They have to find a way to kosher food. You got to find a way for it to work within modernity, right? They're tested through the passage of time.
Yeah, it's more than just that. The point that I was making here is that Shimon's tradition works, and the reason that it works is that he got it from his parents, who got it from their parents, and it didn't stay the same, right? It slowly adapted as the circumstances in which they lived changed, and as a result, what you have here is a very highly evolved form of religion, right? It's one that's been tested by time, not just by modern times, but it's been tested over millennia, so that it's found its mechanisms for adapting. It found its way to survive, right? And what the point I was bringing out with Heidi and Amber, the reason I needed two generations there is because I wanted to show how, you know, Heidi being a typical end of the millennium liberal, right? Yeah, I'm kind of sympathetic to her, right? I mean, these are people that I grew up with and that I know, and
there's a sense that you're sympathetic to all the characters.
Except for Amber.
Even Amber, like you understand. I felt that you weren't totally like ripping them like you would on cable TV in America, you know?
Right. No,
they were people.
No, I tried to get into her head. That's the point. Yeah. So Heidi is like a typical old-fashioned liberal who wants to do the right thing, right? She's not trying to shut people down. That's not her thing. She just thinks that, you know, guys like Shimon are just old-fashioned and useless, and she kind of has it all figured out. And my main objection to her is a little humility wouldn't hurt.
Right.
Okay,
and that's how you end the book.
Right. Exactly. It's the point I'm making. The difference between Shimon and Heidi is just that it's humility. Heidi thinks, let's figure it out, right? We're big experts. We've got all these experts. We've got economists. We've got psychologists. We don't need tradition. We don't need Shabbat to tell us how to rest. We've got psychologists and sociologists, you know, and we don't, right? All of this stuff. We don't need old kosher rules, right? We've got people who understand, you know, biochemistry and dietitians and all that. And let's just, you know, we'll figure it all out. And my point there is, no, you got it wrong because society is too complicated to figure it all out. That's my argument with her. But then I say, but there's something else you don't understand, okay? You've got nothing to pass down to your kids. And now what you get, while Heidi came from a traditional background and rebelled against it, but she didn't realize how much she really depended on it. It was like kind of a silent anchor for her, right? There's so many things she just took for granted that were really based in traditional society, and then she kind of rebelled against that and kept what she kept without realizing it, and kind of rebelled very loudly against the other stuff. But Amber had no tradition to rely on, and what she did is she actually reinvented religion, right?
My Judaism.
My Judaism, but she doesn't even call it Judaism. It's a whole new woke religion, and the point is, for her, she's got the icons of environmentalism. But mainly, she's got the bad guys, right? Like the Hamans and the pharaohs of her religion, right? Or anybody that's actually preserving traditional values. And she's going to shut those people down, right? I mean, she is really on a religious crusade. But the difference is that unlike Shimon's traditionalism, which is rooted in 2,000 years of, slowly adapting, right, while keeping the core, Amber is just winging it, right? So she's got this whole new religion, and because it has not gone through this crucible, right, of being kind of honed into something that people could live with, she is actually scary. She's dangerous, right? She wants to get people jailed. She wants to get people silenced, and that's what frightens me about it.
Your family comes from Eastern Europe. Mine comes from Eastern Europe also, but especially from Russia. Like when you say these things, I know what that Judaism leads to. It leads to a communism that sends you to jail and sends you to the gulag and shoots you in the back of the head. Like it's not these things are. That's not, you know what I'm saying. You're saying it in a lighthearted way, but these things can become, these ideas, a newfangled version of a messianic process, which was what communism was.
Right. Oh, I make the connection between Amber and communism explicitly in the book. That's exactly what I'm worried about. Is that Amber is actually bringing us just a modern day communism.
Yeah, and the unrootedness. That's right, the unrootedness. It leads to a constant change, a constant. I never heard that term, silent anchor. Is that an American idiom? I never heard. Is that, or did you make that up? Silent anchor.
Yeah, made that up.
I like that. Silent anchor. That's right.
I don't think I'm the first to use it, but for the purposes of the book.
It's a powerful idea. There are things that sometimes we take for granted, but they're part of our psyche and of our society. They're silent anchors. They live there. Certainly, just for what I do in life, which is Chevron, it's like there's a silent anchor for our peoplehood, this thing, and so many people just want to just relinquish it. I do want to read a passage here. That and the book is, and I'm saying this, I hope Moshe doesn't hear me, written very well, no mistakes, very excellent language. He says, but even for Shimon, the substance of this belief has to conform to the experience of the world. That's what I was saying before, which is that Moshe's argument is that this is time-tested. This is even truer for those who, unlike Shimon, prefer to think more concretely of the claim that Judaism is a uniquely viable process. As I've argued throughout the book, Jewish tradition has indeed proved itself to be viable over millennia. It is well adapted to human moral intuitions, carefully balancing the universal and particular flavors of morality. It strikes a balance between living oral tradition and a written tradition of analysis and codification. If you had to bet on the viability of one culture, and by the way, you do, let's get back to that in a minute. You could do worse than putting your money on the Jews. I very much doubt that you could do better. And then you quote Mark Twain. And I have to read it just because if there's any opportunities to quote this quote, it's always important to do so. In the words of Mark Twain, the Egyptian, the Babylonian, and the Persian rose, filled the planet with sound and splendor, then faded to dream stuff and passed away. The Greek and the Roman followed and made a vast noise, and they are gone. Other peoples have sprung up and held their torch high for a time, but it burnt out, and they sit in twilight now, or have vanished. The Jew saw them all, beat them all, and is now what he always was, exhibiting no decadence, no infirmities of age, no weakening of his parts, no slowing of his energies, no dulling of his alert and aggressive mind. All things are mortal, but the Jew. All other forces pass, but he remains. Now, that's an amazing quote, and there's a lot to talk about there, but let me ask you why you wrote that you have to bet on the viability of one culture. Why should you bet? Why is that important?
Okay, well, first of all, I do have to say that it's always a danger to quote Mark Twain at length in your own book, because
Most of your book has no quotes. Most of your book is its own.
Right.
It's not a book of. It's not one of these business idea books where they quote.
Right.
No. This
No,
is
but
all-
my point is, though, I wish I could write like Mark Twain. I mean, you put in a paragraph of Mark Twain, and it just makes everything, the paragraphs before and after it, seem so blah. You know, my God, I wish I could write like Mark Twain.
Well,
Anyway, so but to your point, right? Your point was that I kind of in this parenthetic remark said,
yeah, you insinuated that you have to bet on a culture. Why?
you do have to bet on a culture.
Why? Why is that a big deal? You know, if
Think
I'm
about it.
Yeah.
Think about it. What gives your life meaning? Okay, what gives your life meaning, right, is that you are part of something larger than yourself, right? You have a family, you have a community, and you're doing good deeds, right, or working on projects, right, that are going to outlast you, right? They're going to live on. They're going to live on within some community, right? Now that community is usually a community that has shared values. It's not just people who happen to live on the same block or in the same housing project, right? Now when I say you do, what I'm saying is you need for your life to have meaning. Everybody needs that. It's just a basic human need. And the way that is expressed is in a family and in a community that will outlive you. So you are betting on the viability of your community. If your community was going to break up and disappear tomorrow, your life would lose its meaning, right? So you're betting on their success. So that's important.
You know, Moshe Koppel, the non-Jewish people who are listening to this show, many of them want to plug in. They sense what you just said. And so in the last few weeks, I've been reading emails from people from far-flung places, you know, in all kinds of woodland places in Canada and other places, who just write to me and say, I've started keeping Shabbat. I need to plug into Israel. I want to plug into Israel. And then there are people like Katie Hopkins, this British commentator, who said to me once at a conference, she said, we're looking to you guys because we're losing our grip on our country, England in her case. And it's like you guys, we're all looking towards you. We want to, and that's the old Christian terminology of being grafted in. It's like there's people who do sense that, and they sense also in this moment where I wouldn't be the first person to say that there's an American decline, and there's a whole world that lives off America. I was in Australia and I realized how much Australia lives off America. And my point is that people they sense that their fascination with sports or other American type things is dwindling and it's meaningless. And they're trying to plug in. They're trying to plug into the Bible. They're trying to plug into God. And with that, Israel. What do you think?
Well, the fact of the matter is that everybody is looking for a viable society. And
even millennials, even young people today, are they conscious of that?
Maybe not yet, but as they get older, they're going to discover that that's something that they either are happy they have or they wish they had. And you look at Israel. One of the things that's unique about Israel. This is just purely a statistical fact. Okay, it is the only Western country in which women who self-define as secular are still having children at above replacement level. It is the single Western country in the whole world. Okay. Now, most Western countries in the world are actually below replacement level, below 2.05 children per woman. Okay. Israel is at about 3, which is pretty healthy. But the interesting thing is, if you look at religious communities around the world, they are generally having well above replacement level. The problem is women who self-define as secular, and Israel is unique in that respect. So that just is excuse me, that's just one example. But we're talking about a lot more. If you look at statistics on suicide, for example, which are going up all over the Western world, not in Israel. Okay, all of this is because. Another question, that Israelis answer on all these value surveys is, does your life have meaning? Do you feel you're leading a meaningful life? And the answer in Israel is yes in much higher percentages than it is in other places. All this is because we are a very traditional people. Even those who are against tradition are kind of, they've got that God-shaped gap in their psyches, right?
Oh,
And it's,
you know that guy Seidman? This guy's hard left. He toured Nancy Pelosi, and I wrote some very mean tweet against him, and he wrote back to me something, and he finished up with Shabbat Shalom. So he's a avowed. He says Israel's an apartheid state and all that, but Judaism is important to him.
Right. So that really is important. We can argue about politics from within a traditional religious point of view, and I'm okay with that. Not everybody has to agree with my political views. I mean, my views are strongly held. Make no mistake about it. And I think that those people who are disagreeing with me, who are anti-Zionist and so forth, are badly mistaken. Okay, and sometimes doing really horrible things. But nevertheless, as long as we can agree that we are part of the Jewish people and respect Jewish tradition, right? I'm willing to have that argument. I see hope. I see hope for our joint future, right? And that's really, really important. When you see people who've given up on religion, who've given up on tradition, on their customs and so forth, and are just kind of left out there floating, or trying to use science to solve problems of meaning and value, it's a very sad thing. So if Israel is serving as an example to the world on this, well, you know what? That's not only a great honor, it's a great responsibility, and I hope we're up to it.
The book is called Judaism Straight Up. Why Real Religion Endures. Interesting that you didn't say why real Judaism endures. You said why real religion endures, because I think maybe there's a prescriptive element here, and not just an explanation of or the section of Judaism, but rather tradition as a way. And I think that you would appreciate, like, for example, when I bumped into a custodian in the hotel that I was in Orlando, and he showed me with pride how he knows the Bible and how he's passing on to his children. And he said to me proudly, "My children go to church, so do my grandchildren." Like, I felt at that, and this was the irony of the ages. I'm like, good, we're together, right? Like, you have tradition. So I think that's why you called it that. And interestingly, it's published by Magid, and you have some great folks here who give you accolades, which is, for example, Professor Aumann and Ben Shapiro. So a lot of good folks. So congratulations on that. I want people to check out Judaism Straight Up. Now that we're here, though, for just the last 2-3 minutes, Israel is in. There's a moment out here. There's a moment out here, and it could very well be that next week, this time, will either be at the aggression will stop. Putin will find a way to sign some kind of peace deal with Zelensky. Zelensky will declare neutrality, and Putin will have showed his thing. The West's economic boycotts will recede and come back, and people in Poland will start listening to Tchaikovsky again, and it'll be okay. They've banned listening to Russian music in Poland. Okay, that's how far gone the cancel culture has proliferated. We could also see a situation where a tactical nuke goes off somewhere over there in that vast flatland of Ukraine, and NATO rushes in these jets from Poland, wherever it is, and this whole region starts to become a completely different place. So now I don't usually talk that way. Okay, I don't usually say we're like on the, but it could, and there's enough global pressure around here, and there's all these like, for example, I read in Forbes that some $1 trillion of Chinese value in American stocks of Chinese companies was erased off the boards like last week. So there are things here that are not. This is not a small local altercation. There's something going on here. So I wanted to ask you, give me a little bit of perspective on Ukraine. Russia, and then the strange magnetism that constantly is drawing Israel into the sphere, which is like almost like not understandable. What do we have to do with the Slavic war? And people get angry at me when I say call it a Slavic war. But there's some magnetism. Is it Zelensky's a Jew? Is it that there's many Jews there? Is it our relationship with Russia? All these things. Tell me how you see that conflict and its kind of magnetism of Israel into it.
Yeah, which way this is going to play out, I don't know any better than anybody else does. It's really hard to see, but as you point out, it's really a tinderbox. I mean, this could blow up or it could blow over. right? And I really don't know. I just know that we need to be very cautious about this. Now, in terms of Israel getting involved as a mediator between, so there are two mysteries about this. The first is why Israel would want to put itself in that position. You know, as somebody said to me, what could possibly go wrong? Yeah, I think I could think of a few things that could possibly go wrong. Okay, that's number one. And then the question is, why would the Russians and the Ukrainians, right? I mean, of all the possible mediators in the world, why would Naftali Bennett be the guy that they would be turning to? I have no idea. I have the feeling that this is connected to other issues that are not being talked about. One of which is the Iran deal, right? Renewing the already horrible Iran deal, except this time making it even worse. Where, you know, essentially, if we're not going to be getting cheap oil from Russia, let's get cheap oil from Iran. That sounds like a really horrible idea as well. So I would say at the moment I am cautiously pessimistic. But does this prove once again that whenever stuff happens, Jews, whether they like it or not, are kind of pulled into the center of things because that's just part of some grand divine plan that I don't understand? Could be.
I thought to myself, maybe this is like the Megillah. Like, look, we're at the party. See, we're at the party. See, we're always showing up at the party. Here we are. You know, and there's some kind of tendency of the Jewish people to want to be at the party or to get drawn into the party one way or the other. Lastly, Purim. Here we are. Your book your book, Judaism Straight Up, is in some ways a rationalization of Judaism without being godless. It's not godless, but it is irrational. I would say that your computer science aspect of your thinking is, you could see it through it. But Esther, the book of Esther, while it has great political lessons, is also the book of hidden revelation. Right? It's like there is revelation, but it's hidden. It's obvious, and yet it's not there. I think that term comes back to me, silent anchor. I really like that term. There's the silent anchor. So I know that you, for many years, held court here on Purim. So tell me one last thought about Purim before we go.
Okay, I love Purim, as you point out, and the theme that runs through Purim is exactly that. Oh, things are not as they appear, right? And that's why the idea is on Purim we put on costumes and we drink wine so that, you know, we get high. And what it really is all about is authenticity, right? So part of the putting on the masks is really taking off the masks, right? By
like people get dressed up to what they really are.
To what they really are, right? I always dress up as a chassid on Purim, so you might not be surprised to hear that. But there's the whole thing is really about authenticity and what's actually going on behind the masks. So the story is about God's intervention behind the mask of you know, natural events. And Purim is about putting on a mask in order to show our authentic selves, the ones that are usually hidden by our natural masks, right? So that's what it's all about. And so I wish everybody that Purim should be a moment in which we all return to our true selves, our authentic selves.
Amen. Moshe Kapel, Dr. Moshe Kapel is a professor of computer science at Bar-Ilan University. Is that emeritus now? That's emeritus.
I am now emeritus.
Now emeritus. He's the founder and director of Kohelet Policy Forum, author of many articles, and is the author of Judaism Straight Up, Why Real Religion Endures, put out by Magid, and you can get it on Amazon and other places.
And at Magid, yeah.
And at Magid, of course.
Koren Publishers.
Koren Publishers. Okay, they publish a lot of straight Torah books, but also their imprint. Magid puts out a lot of interesting thoughts, including I think Rabbi Sachs and others, and your books are amongst theirs. That's pretty good stuff. God bless you, Moshe Kapel, and happy Purim.
Thank you so much. Same to you, Yishai.
Ishai needs coffee and vodka. Please help support the show by buying Ishai coffee at buymeacoffee.com/Ishai. Thank you and l'chaim.
All right, folks, you are listening to the Yishai Fleisher Show. So great to be hanging out with Malka Fleisher for Purim, with you wherever you are, with Dr. Moshe Kopel. So much fun. So many special people in our lives. You guys are the specialist of them all. Wherever you are, we're sending you our blessings. please write me an email, yishai@yishaifleischer.com. Hope to see you here in the land of Israel on your trips and on your tours and in your prayers and in your heart. Be part of the story by also going to yishaifleischer.com. Check out all the other content there and go to the donate page if you want to be part of the big projects. And if you want to be part of the show and the small projects, check out buymeacoffee.com/Yishai. Those are ways to help. But let's just pray for one another today. Let's pray for each other's great victories. Let's pray for overcoming Amalek and for the rebuilding of the land of Israel. We're living in an unbelievable, unprecedented, it was precedented 2,000 years ago, but since then, we have not lived in such an amazing rebirth of the Jewish people in the land of Israel. It's something that our forefathers and mothers dreamt about and prayed about, and it's happening in our time. Purim has everything to do with it. And there are many forces, there are many Amalekite forces out there today because they sense the grandeur, the holiness, the great moment that is at hand, and they're out there trying to block it. We are part of the generation that's going to get through that Amalekian challenge. You are a part of it. Don't think you're just a listener. You are an empowered person to be part of that fight. I want to wish you lots of blessings. Shabbat Shalom and good Purim from Judea. And Shalom.
Hey everybody, this is Jeremy Gimpel. Have you heard about the Land of Israel Fellowship? People from all over the world, 24 countries, have joined. We meet live every Sunday, and the video session is recorded and then broadcast to all the members. And it's an exclusive group. It's a group that's focused on learning. We're focused on praying together. We're focused on growing together. And it has been one of the biggest blessings in my life. And we have people from New Zealand to Australia, Alaska, Hawaii, Hong Kong, Jews, Christians. We have a Buddhist. We have one Muslim that's joined. We have people from so many different backgrounds, languages, and cultures. And we are literally creating a virtual house of prayer for all nations. And it is truly marvelous. And so if you want more information about that, please visit www.thelandofisrael.com/fellowship. And I would love to see you next Sunday.